Welcome back, everyone, to the Shock Absorber podcast, and we are here again with the same crew as last week.
Wow.
Wow. Is that
Wow,
even...
wow.
Okay, thanks.
Wow.
I slept here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, just so I was ready in time. Didn't want to be late.
A whole week. just to let you know, guys,
poor
we record
family.
once.
Where's Daddy-O? He's sleeping at church because he won't be late for Friday.
It was very uncomfortable me fitting on this lounge.
So he's not yeah, you would not fit on that lounge very well. You're a quite tall man.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jai. How are you?
Sore now from lying on the
Oh.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Tim?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Joel.
Very well.
Very well.
Excellent. So here we are recording the Shock Absorber. We're going to be talking about the World Service Team today, which is, keep it secret about what that means until later in the podcast.
You've been singing all day about the world.
Have I?
Yeah, you are the world.
No, I haven't actually.
Yeah, you have.
Really only in between recording Chip Lunch and this Shock Absorber.
Oh, that's all I've seen you. So that's all today for me.
Okay.
So a sneak peek behind the curtain
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain. Yeah.
of Joel's Fridays.
Should get a curtain.
Oh, so we can
Oh, you could be like the
Peek
wizard.
behind it.
peek behind
You could be like the wizard.
Yeah.
Don't look
like the
behind
wizard.
the curtain.
We just put it like behind the curtain is just like a picture of me.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, those
Oh, yeah,
pictures
yeah,
that
yeah.
just have the,
You
like
get-
Oh, yeah, that opens up the
auctions.
curtains.
Yeah, at
Get
the
the little-
auctions, they just go, and it's just me.
It's just we need one of those behind you. Oh, no, behind us, probably.
It just goes,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
And I'm like, and we're just going to go for a peek behind the curtain and just,
You could do the Banksy thing where it drops down into a shredder.
when he
and-
shredded
yes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
So we could
Yeah.
different photos of me that it gets shredded every podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then we could say Joel's shredded.
Joel gets shredded.
That could be the episode. Imagine all the views.
What happened to the guy that spent all that money on that Banksy,
I don't know.
that picture that was shredded as he bought it?
I don't know. You'd be devastated though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, but like
It was worth more though, wasn't it?
I was going to say, like it's now not just the Banksy. It's the Banksy that was shredded.
It's
Surely
the
that raised its
Ah, I see.
value
I didn't think of that.
phenomenally.
What do you do with it? You just kind of piece it back together and hang it, or do you?
No, you
But
keep
only it didn't. Did it fully shred?
I think so.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it
I
fully
only
shredded.
remember seeing it getting half shredded.
Yeah, well, that's all I've seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether I don't know what happened then.
I'm just looking it up right now.
Okay,
Get
shredded. Joel
fully
gets shredded.
You know, like that. Like you'd be like so stoked. Yes, I've got this thing, and then you'd be like,
Yeah, the panic would set in. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
yeah,
What have I done?
And then when you realise it's just another Banksy prank,
yeah.
it's, I don't know. I'm sure he was by the end of the processing it through his head. I'm sure he
Yeah.
was stoked.
I would love to have seen his heart rate through all that.
Yes. What does his Apple Watch tell him about his?
Oh yeah. So
Only,
you had,
fluctuations?
only part of the canvas was shredded.
There you
Okay,
go.
there you go.
So that means that he's bought it for, or he or she, I don't know who it was, they sold for about £860,000. The shredder was secretly built into the frame some years earlier, said Banksy, apparently.
No, he had it planned.
Yep, the mechanism kicked in, it began shredding, but instead of completely self-destructing, it stopped part way. So the bottom half was shredded, the upper portion, including the balloon, remained intact. But that means you would have the shredded part. You'd just keep it as it is, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Which is what would raise the value of it even more, like you said.
Yeah.
Banksy later released a video showing the shredding mechanism in rehearsal,
Oh.
where it worked fully and shredded the whole thing.
Oh, so that was the
Alright.
design, was to shred the whole thing.
Well, I'm not sure,
Okay,
You know, you're never quite sure with him.
that's true. That's true.
which
It's
is
a
how
mystery.
he does it, isn't it?
It's the
He
man
is-
behind the curtain.
He is.
Mm.
There's no one seen behind the curtain.
No.
Once it was over, the piece was renamed "Lovers in the Bin."
Instead of lovers in the air. This is a
Sorry,
new
it's
song.
meant to be like "love is in the bin," not
Oh, right.
lovers. Because there's one girl, it's a picture of a girl, Banksy's
Yes.
girl with a balloon. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the heart-shaped balloon. Is that right?
Yes, look, the buyer still followed through on the purchase, and the damaged/shredded form of the work became part of its identity and value.
Mm.
Absolutely.
There you go. Well, talking about trends, I mean, it's a Banksy trend. Something I thought we'd bring up is the Dua Lipa t-shirt meme.
Mm.
I don't know if
Yes.
you've seen this.
Not at all.
No, but
Not until you showed us a couple
Yeah.
of seconds
Well,
ago.
I saw funny thing is, Jai, you and I are both Liverpool supporters.
Oh,
The
nice.
thing that we bonded on a very long time ago. Yes,
Yes.
you are. Something we bonded on very long time ago when we first met,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think that might have been 2001. That was a long time ago. 24 years ago, probably.
Yes, let's not talk about that again.
Oh,
How long
okay.
ago that was?
It's a bad experience for you.
No, just it makes me feel a lot older than
That's true.
I would like to feel.
Well, we're Liverpool supporters, and Liverpool supporters have a bit of a affinity with Dua Lipa because I think it was 2018 Champions League final that we won.
Yep, against Tottenham.
She sang the opening ceremony, opening event for that.
Yep.
And it's her One Kiss song. So Liverpool supporters like to sing the One Kiss song.
Yep.
And so
I think the players don't mind it as well.
They do. I think you're right. Yes, they sing it in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Now, the thing was, I think I was on X at some point and I saw her wearing a PSG shirt. I'm like, oh, that's a bit, got a bit upset about her wearing a different shirt. But apparently what happened is that she posted a photo on Instagram of her just wearing a plain white t-shirt.
Oh.
And people have used AI technology to just put their own form of shirt on her, whatever they want her to wear. So it started with like putting memes and funny logos on stuff, and then people have started taking and putting like IPL, the cricket league teams on there. Yeah. And then that's when I saw the PSG shirt. But like the official club accounts have got on the trend and changed it. So I think Bayern Munich did it, Valencia, and PSG, as we said. They said, no, their posters say like, no, Dua Lipa, you look really good on this. Having said that, there was some Palestinian accounts that decided to change it to Palestine as well, which I thought was an interesting way to jump on the trend. Punjab Kings, the IPL team, Red on You is Levitating, they said, which is a song by Dua Lipa. I'm just interested what you think about that. I think that was it seems like a reasonably wholesome meme to poke a bit of fun. And if she would lean into that, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like doing something like that, like I'm guessing they don't need to worry about getting permission or something because they're having fun with it or something.
Yeah. That's always a question now, is that copyright laws are a little bit less of a thing in terms of that, or intellectual property laws, because it can often be seen as a way of promoting it rather than like, how are you going to chase down every single person that's misusing your intellectual property?
Yeah. And her photos gone viral, so like...
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any downside for her in this. And she was just posting a photo of herself in a white shirt.
Yeah.
Maybe you should post a photo of yourself in a white shirt.
I'm sure it'll be taken up by Liverpool.
I don't think I own a white shirt.
What? You really don't own a white shirt?
I don't own a white shirt at all.
White shorts is even...
No, in white shorts
more impressive.
I'm impressed
my
with
tennis
people.
gear. White shirt, white shorts.
You don't play tennis.
When I go play tennis.
No, you don't.
Down at the club.
At the country club.
The country club. None of that is true.
Just when he watches tennis, he likes to get in there.
Yeah.
When he plays Wii tennis.
Wii tennis.
He takes it very seriously, all right? We all have our things.
Yeah. Any comment on that, Tim? It's an interesting way how something can spread so quickly.
Oh, no.
Because we were talking about, there's also the meme that I've found out from my children who I think would say they'd be Gen Alpha, wouldn't they?
Yes.
That there's the 6'7" meme.
Yeah, which
apparently
I
means nothing. You just say 6'7", and it's come from a song by a rapper that a particular NBA player has taken. He's 6'7", and it's just a thing now.
Yeah.
But it'll be short-lived, just like this would be.
Well, that's right. And we've talked previously about...
Italian brain rot.
Yeah. And just the memification of different things and the attention span economy. We talked about all that kind of stuff. People can go back and listen to previous episodes. Probably relevant to this conversation is the global impact that it affects. Something that can happen in one particular country can get picked up across so many that I assume Dua Lipa lives in America, presumably.
No, she's English.
Oh, she's English. Okay, there we go. So
she probably has a house in America.
Right. Yeah. So therefore the affiliation with a particular English football team kind of makes sense, but then you've got the Indian cricket leagues jumping in on this and other people. So it goes global really, really quickly. And so this idea that a messaging has global reach almost instantaneously is one of the remarkable things about our digital technology and where we are in 2021, 2025. What are we in?
2025.
Sorry, I got confused about the year of the century. In the 21st
this podcast
century.
is going backwards in time.
Yeah, that's right. So, yes, I think that is, really one of the really fascinating things about the way that these trends can become global and the spread in which this can be picked up by teams right across the world is really, really fascinating, and happen at hyperspeed.
Do you think that the gospel has the same propensity to do so, guys? Well, the reason I asked that question is we're going to talk about the World Team, which is about, focuses on mission at Soul Revival. And as we have done with all of our service teams, we looked at a theology, strategy and practice of all of our service teams. We're up to number 9. We've got 1 left after this. I'll leave the listeners
in suspense.
Yeah.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, you can guess.
The final episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
Drop your thoughts, your preview thoughts in the YouTube comments, guys. I don't think you really
I think it's the milk arrowroot team.
The what?
The milk arrowroot team. The one
Oh,
that's specifically designed for milk arrowroots to make sure that there's plenty of them.
I was unaware that we had a team like that, but
It's very important.
yes,
Yeah.
sounds like you are part of
I
it.
can't remember the last time I saw some. Do you?
Well, they're important because you have them with your coffee afterwards,
Yeah.
and also they're a great thing for kids ministry because you can paint them with icing and make little faces.
Oh yeah.
It's a great craft.
Butter between them and
Yeah, you can make a little s'more out of it.
I was thinking of you just have a milk arrow with icing, like a cake icing on it. That's
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's-
good.
Yeah, that's what you do in kids ministry.
Oh
all the
no,
time.
I don't. I eat it.
No. I mean, well, sure, but why just eat it when you can make it Abraham and then eat it?
Father Abraham tastes very, very nice.
Yeah, that's very good.
I've distracted you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Well, that's what we're talking about is
Distractibility.
distractibility. No, the milk arrowroots are universal.
That's, I don't know. That might not be true. But,
Yeah, that might not be
we can be
true.
fact checked if that.
It's also an interesting name, milk arrowroot. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Important of our cultural moment, milk arrowroots, just like Dua Lipa. Now, the thing that we're talking
Well, you
about
could
really
dress
is
them up too, so it works.
It's true. You can put them with whatever colour jersey you want.
oh, that would be interesting.
Or icing.
Put some red icing on it, Jai. Back to the World
It'll
Team.
go faster. Anyway, yes.
Talk about theology, strategy, practice. That's enough from you too. Where do we start with the World Team? So why, for example, we talk about we've got 10 service teams. It's Soul Revival. Some people think that's a lot. We don't think so. We think it encompasses everything we can do in terms of ministry under God. Why do you think that the World Team was something really important to establish as part of that service team lineup, if you want to call that? Do you want to go with that first, Charlie? Because the reason you're on this podcast is because you are also not only the pastor overseeing welcoming, as we talked about last week,
Yep.
but also that you are the pastor overseeing the World Team as well. So I think you're a good place to start for this.
Yes, yeah, it's one of my pairing, and the reason why we included is for a number of reasons. One is our biblical mandate to share the truth and love of Jesus. Plus, also when we planted the church, our bishop encouraged us very strongly when we planted to be a church planting church. And so in that, it means we need to be missional in what we do. That coupled with a whole bunch of connections and partnerships that we have as well, I think every church needs to be mission minded at various levels. And so having a mission team is trying to help us to think through that in a way that fits with our church and our people and our partnerships and all those sorts of things. And so, and our mission, our World Team has evolved and is still actually in a space of change where we've just grown and kind of tried to articulate it better as we keep getting more and more people involved, but also as we grow in our partnerships, and I guess just trying to bring some clarity as to what we do.
Tim, can I ask you a question? We talk about mission. If someone says mission to you, what is your first inclination to, where does your mind go as soon as you hear about mission? Because I think we're trying to have a more holistic view of mission. We'll end up talking about local, regional and world mission, which is kind of how the World Team likes to view it.
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people just hear the term mission or mission partners. It's just people that they know that have perhaps left the church and gone out on mission somewhere. But I think it can be more encompassing that. Would you agree, Tim, or you think what's your perception of it?
Oh yes, I mean I think my reflex is to think world mission, as in what do I think of when someone says the word mission? Yes, I think of overseas. That's my reflex.
Far-flung places of the world.
Yeah. And that has been the way largely that the word has been used, particularly in the last 200 to 300 years. And there's been significant mission agencies, and there's a close tie there between the colonial powers going out politically, and then the Christianity within those same empires going out and saying, well, we've got access to all of these other countries now because of the political allegiances. Let's use the strength of that in order to go and communicate the gospel to all these regions as well. And so it was, I think, just the nature of where we are in world history, the language of mission comes with that kind of outside of our own context kind of language. And probably if you were talking about local context, like how do I mission to my suburb, my city, we'd probably typically use the language of evangelism. And so, what is there again, the reflex answer is evangelism is local and mission is outward. But as you say, we're trying to say, well, let's put it all under this world category. And even that might be deceptive because people think, oh, right, you're talking about other countries. And actually it's our way of describing we have a concern for the world of my next door neighbour and the world of my state and the world of my country and the world right around the world, globally. So, using that language, any shorthand needs to come with an explanation. And so there's going to be part of our communication of what the world team does and our use of the word mission is that we're thinking locally and we're also thinking globally and everything in between.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of kind of expounding on what I was saying is that we see it as encompassing so much more than just we do have mission partners at Soil Revival and they are out on mission and we want to support them and love them and pray for them and encourage them. But there's also, what are we kind of doing that on our own level as well? And like you said, neighbour, you said you were speaking to someone like, are we mowing neighbours' lawns, for example? Are we going to just love other people in that respect? I was leaving the other day and a neighbour next door to us is really lovely and he's a really nice guy. And I said, oh, what are you doing? Because we were just leaving. He's like, oh, I backed into a pole and then I've pulled off the side mirror, so I'm trying to fix that. I'm like, oh, that sucks, doesn't it? And he's like, yeah, it really does suck. And I'm like, you just get so annoyed at yourself when you do things like, it's like, yeah. But it's just like a shared thing. I could have just ignored him, is what I meant. And I think I was encouraged by things that you said before, Tim, is like, well, what are you doing just loving your neighbour? I'm like, oh, I'm just sharing in your experience here of. That's right. That's just a version of it.
Yeah. And it starts there, and hopefully you build neighbourly relationships. And I was thinking about this, we're about to move from a series of Apostles' Creed is finishing up soon. We're about to move into a series of 1 Peter. And the whole of 1 Peter is about how do you actually live amongst a pagan world. Like, as Christians are the minority. Most people you interact with in the world are not going to be Christ followers. How do you live in the context of that? And it's very recent problem, like it's a first century problem for Peter's audience, but it's increasingly that in the West as well. And so as we think about what does it actually mean to live as Christians in amongst, most of your street are not going to be Christians, not going to be, that some of them, about 40% of them will tick Christian on the census box, but only about 10% of them would go to church more than monthly. And so, what does it actually look like to be a good neighbour? That is part of what it means to be on mission, to actually care for them in very immediate things like broken side mirrors and overgrown lawns, and also in the ultimate sense that actually if I helped fix your mirror and help mow your lawn, you still wouldn't know the beauty and love of Jesus. And so, you want to get to a point where you can have deep existential conversations, but very rarely you're going to be able to have that. That's going to be the first conversation with your next door neighbour. It might be, and again, we talk about long-term, low-key relational. Well, that's kind of how neighbourhoods work too. God is patient, God is kind. He may come back tomorrow, but he may not come back for another 200, 2,000 years. Let's presume that we can be long-term, low-key relational, but still with that sense of urgency that we also don't know what will happen to us or them in the next week, year. And so, just being aware of how balance all that in there is an urgency to tell people about Jesus, and yet Jesus is also patient and kind. And so it's somewhere in the middle of that is the impulse to share the truth and love of Jesus with as many people as we can.
Yeah, that's cool. So, Jai, preaching the love of Jesus, truth and love, sorry, not just the love, truth and love. Are there particular Bible verses that we like to look at in terms of, when we're talking about theology, beginning of the world team, at the beginning of talking about the world team? Are there any particular Bible verses that you like to pull out, or are actually an encouragement for the world team in terms of how we should look at how we're doing ministry from that team?
Yeah, well, I was thinking along the same lines as Tim just said as well. As we jump into 1 Peter, there's lots of passages lots of verses in 1 Peter that talks about how we're to live as exiles and foreigners or aliens in this world, and how we're to imitate Christ, how we're to love people in word and in action, so that they will glorify God on the day that Christ return. We've got Jesus in. I haven't got it here, right? In Matthew it talks about going out and sharing the good news, or is it? Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And shall I am with you always to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:19-20. As I said earlier, like our mandate is to take the truth and love out, to share the gospel, the good news with people, whether it's in our next door neighbour, people in our street, people in our shopping centres, schools, workplaces. When we're on holidays, even. I think that's an interesting thing to think through. Like, how do you, when you're on holidays and you're in a different space, can you share the truth and love of Jesus? Often we don't think about that because we're on holidays, and so we're on holidays from work, we're on holidays from responsibilities, and we're on holidays from being Christians as well. Sometimes, can I be on holidays and be on mission at the same time? It's an interesting thing to think through. I think there's something in Chronicles about how we're to sing the praises of God to the nations, and proclaim His goodness to all people. Basically, you look at everything or you even look just at who Israel as God's people were meant to be. They were meant to be a declaration of the goodness of God and His salvation and His grace and mercy. And they were people were meant to see God's people and go that there is a God, there is a Creator. And so even us today as God's people, we just talked about. So this last weekend when we talked about the church.
Yeah, last weekend.
Yeah. The part of who we are is we're meant to be. It says we're God's holy church. Doesn't mean we're perfect, but we're holy because He has made us holy in Christ, and we're meant to show what it is to live as God's people in a world where holiness is not something that's necessarily held up as a important aspect of life.
I think maybe that's what we're trying to aspirationally go for, is not just, I think it's like down to a personal level, but also down to and all the way up to a worldly level. I think that's what I think that we're trying to do. I think about just, I don't know if this means anything, but sometimes when, like, if I'm going to the shops, and I mean, these days at supermarkets, you're often checking out yourself anyway. Yeah. But when I do see someone on the checkout, I just try and be like they sometimes look like they're not really enjoying their life right there. I just say, thanks very much. Like, I try to just say, thank you very much, show my appreciation. I try not to bother them, but I try to show their appreciation going, I wonder if that in a small way is just, are you being on mission there? But I don't know. That's just, it's like the salt of the earth thing, isn't it? It's the way that you're living is trying to just love people in that very moment, rather than, I think I'm trying to draw the two threads between, I think sometimes at church we're just like, that's the evangelist's job.
Yes. It's
the people that have gone out to a country and faithfully followed God out to there. We know people that have done that, of course.
Yeah.
But then it's not the case. It's like, how can we do that in a personal or even a family context? And that's where I think the world team is trying to capture, is that it's, we talked about the Apostles' Creed, and that we talked about the difference between how it says the Holy Catholic Church, and it's through space and time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're trying to get to, is that like we are united through Christ, as you're saying, Jai, through space and through time. So therefore, we are doing it all together, rather than just the people that go off and leave the church to do so.
Yeah. I don't think that's, when we get to 1 Peter, that's going to be really helpful. It's going to draw that out, that, what we often think is just for the evangelist to do, or the person who goes on mission overseas, is actually something all Christians are called to do. We're called to live a life worthy of the calling we've received, which is what's to declare the praises of God and to give thanks for what Jesus has done for us, and to share this good news that we have in Christ with other people. Not to keep it to ourselves, but to share it. That's not just the work of an evangelist, that's the work of every Christian.
Yep.
That's everyone's call. And I guess part of our world team is to keep that on the radar of everybody. That it's not just for a certain group of people to do this. This is something where we're all involved, and to try and help see those various levels that we can be involved.
It's very similar to welcoming, like we were just talking about. It's everyone's job to welcome people in a church. It's also everyone's job to spread the gospel outside of church as well.
Yeah.
Tim, have you got any more Bible verses that you kind of...
Yeah, so one of the interesting things that I remember from studying world missions and mission stuff at college and at SMBC, so they had a big mission focus, was to do like a biblical theology of mission. And one of the things that they highlight during that course is that it's always been God's plan to have his salvation ring out to all nations across the earth. And so, which is interesting, particularly in the Old Testament, because so much of the Old Testament is focused on the particularity of Abraham's family and Abraham's descendants, because it is through Abraham's very specific family that the Saviour will come. So you do get this distinction between the Jews and the Gentiles. You get this very clear distinction between those who are Israel and those who are not Israel. And yet you see these glimpses all the way through that God is using the particularity of Abraham's family in order to bless the whole world. And he says that in one of the promises to Abraham at the start. But this echoes all the way out. So we have verses, just a couple here, Psalm 67, verses 1 and 2. May God be generous to us and bless us, make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. So this is, again, that idea that God is being particularly gracious and blessing Israel, God's people, in order that, so that, with the intention that his ways are actually known and salvation is known to all nations. So it's a particular blessing to God's people that then doesn't stay with God's people but radiates out of God's people to everyone else. And you see this in Isaiah as well. Again, Isaiah in chapter 49, he's talking about bringing Jacob back from exile, back from, and reestablishing him in the land, which you go, yeah, that's great. That's exactly what God promised to Abraham, that he would, his people in his land and under his blessing. But by verse 6, God says, but it's too small a thing for you to be my servant and restore the tribes of Jacob and to bring those to Israel. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, and my salvation will reach the ends of the earth. So he's saying, I am going to bring you back. I am going to restore you. I am going to keep my promise to this particularity of Abraham's family, but it doesn't stay there. It was never intended to stay there. From Genesis all the way through to the end of the Old Testament, you see that God's plan is actually at both ends. It is for the sake of Abraham, so that all nations will hear the declaration and the salvation of God. Which should then raise the question, well, how is God going to do that? Like, how is God going to use a particular family of Abraham in order to bring salvation to all the world? And of course, like every answer, it's Jesus. Jesus is the one who brings salvation, dies on the cross, rises again, establishes God's kingdom. And then from Acts onwards is the story of, and now that this kingdom has been inaugurated, it is now your responsibility to go out and to spread that. And so the promise of Acts 1:8 is that declaration of Jesus being God's king who has established God's kingdom, and salvation is now open to everyone, will go from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria to the ends of the earth, just like God had been saying all the way through the Old Testament. So like everything, it kind of comes to a point in Jesus and you go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then it explodes out of there again. And here we are 2,000 years later on the other side of the globe, realising the ends of the earth. Yeah, the gospel has come to the ends of the earth, even to Sydney. Isn't that amazing? And so, and you go out and there's all different types of mission reports and different agencies that track different things of mission. And there are still, people groups and particular language groups that the gospel of Jesus has not yet come to. But the vast majority of the world, and certainly every nation state as we currently draw the lines, has had Christians in it and has had the gospel proclaimed. And so it has come true, it is continuing to come true that, the salvation goes out to the ends of the earth.
How do we, using this theological perspective that we're looking at, that I agree with everything you're saying, Tim, and I think it's really interesting how it all came to that moment of Jesus' death and resurrection that exploded from there. I really like the way you term that. How do we use those theological perspectives and mandates, as we've said, Jai, how do we use that to kind of mitigate it against that thought we said where some people might go, oh, that's not my job? How do we encourage people to be evangelists in everything they do? Not like the picture of people that an evangelist is the person that's like a Billy Graham who's out there preaching the gospel on TV and to thousands of people. How do we encourage people to be evangelists in their own life? And how does the World team facilitate that?
I think so. We're all evangelists because we're all evangelizing in some way or another. We both like Liverpool, right? And we'll evangelize about Liverpool. Tim likes Wii tennis. He'll,
Tasmanian Devils.
Tasmanian Devils. I'll tell you. You want to hear about Tasmania? No.
We should do a podcast just on Tasmanian
Devils.
We
should do a podcast on Tasmanian Devils. That would be amazing.
So, because there's always things that we're excited about, or something that we've heard, or something we've learned, or something that we're really excited to share with other people. And really, evangelizing is sharing something, right? And so we're all evangelizing in one way or another. It's interesting when we talk about our faith, then it's specialized and it's not generalized. And so, there are some who are gifted at evangelizing and they can stand up in front of crowds and they can do. I take my hat off to people who can go and knock on doors or go up to people in the street and evangelize. Not all of us can do that, but we can all evangelize in our own unique way because God has given us all unique gifts. We're all unique individuals and we all have different perspectives in the way. I know you're going to say I'm not. Monty Python.
Oh,
you're all
we're all individuals.
Oh, I'm not. And so therefore we can all evangelize and we do all evangelize in the things that we love. I think part of what we want to do as the World team is we want to encourage people to love Jesus so deeply and treasure him so much in our hearts that he just overflows in our conversations. And so just as our love for a sport team or whatever it might be just flows out in our conversations, we want Jesus to flow out in people's conversations and to see that evangelism is really just sharing what we're excited about, sharing what we love. And if we love Jesus and we're excited about Jesus, I've used the illustration of overdosing garlic at church. I don't know if you can overdose on garlic, right? You can have way too much garlic. And when you do, it doesn't just come out your breath, but it kind of comes out of your sweat. It just comes out in your
radiates.
Sweat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. It's a really bad analogy, but it's that idea that it's like we're so we overdose on the love of Jesus. It just flows out of every pore, every fibre of our being, and that's what evangelism is just sharing something that we love deeply.
Because that isn't it? Is it the Greek? Is it euangelion, which is good? Is it good news?
Yeah.
So we're sharing the good news.
Yeah. If you've got good news, you don't want to keep it yourself, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point.
But I think part of the why we don't is where it's something so personal that we're afraid of being rejected.
Okay.
So if you don't like my football team, that's fine.
Too bad.
You're not the only one, right? But you reject Jesus, that's something I hold dear, or that means you reject me and all that I...
And my identity.
And my identity, right? And so it becomes a little bit of a... So the difficulty is navigating that sort of area of that sharing of the gospel.
Mm.
Yeah, okay.
And there's also the cultural, so that Immanuel Kant idea that there's the things we can know and the things we can't. Know that I've lost his name, the terms now, but there are things that we share and that we don't share, and there are things that are ideas and there are things that are reality, and religion belongs in that top box of the things that it's lovely for you to have, but it doesn't have to ground our imminent reality, which also means that sort of over time, since Kant's time, that's led to this idea that your religion is just something that is part of you, and it doesn't. It's impossible to be objectively true or false about that. So it's nice that you've got an opinion, but you also respect other people's opinions, and it's also not something. Along with that, you've got a growing secularism, which says it's fine for you to have a private faith, but you just don't bring that into public conversation. Yeah. And so, when why people talk to you and say, "Oh, what did you do on the weekend?" "Oh, I went to church," and that's about all I want to say about that. Yeah. Or I don't even give that answer. Because actually in this workplace, which is just a secular workplace, or secular neighbourhood or whatever, the awkwardness of bringing in something that belongs in the other realm, that belongs over there. And so that has brought this sense of awkwardness about bringing up things of religion. And sometimes we then look at people who are way too or not awkward enough about religion and go, "Oh, they're a little bit weird, aren't they?" Yeah. You got the Ned Flanders stereotype from The Simpsons of just over the top, exuding Jesus. And actually you look at it and go, "That's pretty amazing actually," like the way that he just doesn't care.
Hey, neighbour.
But almost to a point of being socially inept. Like we look at him and go, "Oh no, it's just socially sophisticated people. We wouldn't be as open about our love for Jesus as Ned is." And he's only that overt about his love for Jesus because he's socially inept. He doesn't know how to play the social game as a modern 20th century, 21st century human being. But because I'm so much more socially adept than he is, I will keep Jesus to myself. And I think that there's part of that needs to be challenged as well. And this is, again, coming back to 1 Peter, a lot of what he says in 1 Peter is just living quiet lives that are unassuming and living out the fruits of the Spirit, and he's got different ways of expressing that. But then he comes to the point where he says, always be ready to give an answer for the hope. Yeah. So this is this person stinks of garlic, and you go, "Man, what is going on?" And you go, "Oh yeah, too much garlic bread." Like, you've got an answer to why you stink of garlic. If you see someone who is, far kinder, far more gentle, far more peaceful, far more self-controlled than most people I don't know what it is, Joel, but there's just something about you, like the way you enact, the way you live in this workplace is just different to most other people I've worked with. To be able to say, "Oh, thanks for that," like actually it's part of me trying to live for Jesus. I actually believe that Jesus changes everything and that he changes me as well. And again, long-term low-key relational, the first time I go, "That's a bit weird." Okay. Or it might be, "Oh, like, tell me a bit more about that." Like, I just thought Jesus was just something you believed in, cross your fingers, hope that you can, when you die, that's not the end. "Oh, no, it's actually much more than that for me. Like, if you wanted to, I could talk to you about it at some time." So it's those kinds of things, but it's living out in deeds, but it's also the words when people notice that you are being salt, that you are being light, that you are living such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, there's actually nothing there. You can actually give them a hope for what you trust in. And so that's part of what it means to be here and to witnessing.
Sorry, funny story. I was playing soccer with a guy who came up to me one day and said, "I thought you were normal, but I've realised there's something that's just not right." And I said, "What is that?"
Wow, yes.
What is it? He said,
"My wonky eyes."
"Everyone else swears, but you don't swear."
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but Jai, you've heard me tell the story, is that you were coaching a friend of mine.
Yep.
And basically the weekend that you became a Christian, this guy
came back. A training session.
A training session,
yeah.
This friend of mine went back to his dad and he goes, I don't know what it is, Dad, but I think Jai's become a Christian. And Dad's like, that's a bit weird. Why would you say that about your soccer coach? He goes, all of a sudden he's not swearing.
And he didn't yell.
And he didn't yell. And it was something, I just reckon he's become a Christian, Dad. I don't know how evident it was to him. I mean, I don't know if he found out straight away, but years later we were sharing this story, and by then you were at least a key leader, if not a pastor at our church. And this mate of mine, Paul, was like, I knew the weekend that Jai became a Christian. I could tell.
So I only found that I only heard about that story from him like a year or two ago.
Right, yeah.
When I was doing my testimony at the church for a men's breakfast.
Right, yeah.
It was like, wow, that kind of shocked me.
Yeah.
But true. Yeah.
And again, there was that, you didn't say it with words, but there was, the Spirit was already changing you in such a way that there was salt and there was light pouring out of you in that moment as a week-old Christian, that it was noticeable. It was distinct. There was something beautiful about that. And had he asked you, you would have been able to give some sort of answer to what the hope that you had.
Yeah.
That's a similar story at my wedding reception. Riley Spring, who we've mentioned on the podcast before, he's planted and leads a church in Parramatta in Sydney. And he was telling me at our wedding reception that he was in the toilets with some other people that, like, some related to my family somewhere. And they're like, yeah, good wedding, isn't it? Yeah. They're like, yeah, it's good. And it was a good reception, good food and stuff. And there's like, yeah, you could tone down the God stuff a bit though, because like in the speeches we talked about being Christians and stuff. And I just thought, yeah, that's funny. At least like you're living it out.
Yeah.
And you said in your speech that we're clearly Christians and we care about it and it's important. And anyway, I think that's cool. Let's talk about strategy. What kind of strategical elements do we think about when we're part of the World Team, Jai? So we've talked about it last week, low-key, long-term, relational, intergenerational. There's many other things that we talk about. And it's always about how are we doing the strategy. And even, as we've said a number of times before, it can seem a bit ethereal, the strategy of like, you can't actually touch it, but it's important to be there. What are the strategy elements that we think about in terms of the World Team?
The relationship is definitely a big part of what we want to do. We want to make sure that what we're doing is always in relationship. So the stuff we do in North West New South Wales is all about the relationships that we have up there, the LAR's relationships. And so it's having that knowing and trusting one another is a really important strategy as we move forward in what we do as a mission team. We also want to make sure that when we're thinking about mission, and we're talking about as the World Team, we want to make sure that part of our strategy is to be thinking about local, regional and overseas, and making sure that we're not just focusing on one area, which sometimes, we said at the beginning, right, we talk about mission, we think overseas. So we want to think about, what's going on in our area here in the Southern Shire, what's happening in our state, what's happening in our country and around the world, and making sure that as we do that, we're not. And part of the reason why we want to do that is not make sure we don't want to elevate some over others. We want to see everything as equally as important, and that means that going to the checkout and being salt and light at the checkout with someone at Coles is just as important as someone being overseas and sharing the gospel over there. And people have different opinions on that. They'll say that's more important than what we do here. But as a World Team, we want to make sure that we're focusing on every area and every way of being on mission in this world that we live in as exiles and strangers. That's part of what we're looking at in terms of our strategy there, and making sure that that as we do that the whole church comes along with us in that, and that's part we're currently working on, is how to bring what's happening sort of outside of church into church, and then have church blending in, feeding out, whatever, merging, reciprocating, whatever the right word is. My words aren't working today, to what's happening outside. So it becomes a circular kind of relationship with church and mission.
So it's not just like we were kind of saying before, everyone's just, if someone's on mission, they're out there and we'll pray for them, but you're trying to work out how they can feed back into what we're doing at church.
Yeah. So how can we be on mission at church, and as individuals?
Okay.
How do we do that? And Commitments Week that we do is really helpful and important in that. That we're starting that this week, and we'll spend time praying for those who don't know Jesus, whether they're friends, family, co-workers. That's part of being on mission. And so that's part of outside coming in. And so we keep working on those sorts of things. When we do carols, that's us as a church going on mission. When we do Easter down at Swallow Rock, that's us going out. Even though we're doing church outside, the conversations that we have with people putting their boat in the water, having a picnic, paddling, going for a kayak or whatever it might be, all that is us together doing stuff, and being mindful too that in all that, in our day-to-day lives, we're all going out on mission. And we've got friends in North West New South Wales who are all on mission. We've got friends overseas on mission, and so it's trying to draw all that together.
Yeah, cool.
It's really easy, actually.
It's a big job, that's for sure, and probably an ever-changing job as well. Yeah. Tim, someone lectured on intergenerational ministry. How do you think that we see this from a world perspective? I'd be interested in your take on this, because you've written books and everything about intergenerational ministry.
And some chapters.
And some chapters in another book.
That's true.
But I think this would be a really interesting perspective to hear about how you view world mission, but when we say world mission, we're calling it local, regional, and the world. How do we see that from an intergenerational perspective, which is a big part of our strategy?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's probably aspects of there I haven't thought through yet. That's the next book. That's the next book. Yeah.
That's what this podcast's for. This is going to start the next book.
Right. There we go. You heard it here first, people. One of the things we've noticed is that by having intergenerational gatherings, that has a uniquely missional element, in that it doesn't matter what age or stage you are. When you come to any of our gatherings, there will typically be people that you will connect with immediately, and people who will stretch you in difference. And that both of those are a good thing. Both of those come together in intergenerationality, that it's good to have peers, and it's good to have relationships outside of your peer group.
Stretch you in difference. I like that term.
Yeah. And so what that means is that, part of the being light and salt into the world, being different, being distinct, is that much of our society is segregated by ages. There are not many places where generations naturally come together for mutually encouraging relationships and seeking to input into each other. So you have things where the event may interest different generations, like sporting events is probably a very good intergenerational, multi-generational thing. You've got grandparents, parents, grandchildren, great-grandchildren who are all following the same team, and so therefore the game brings all of those together through the age group. So sport is a great example of this. Some music might be like this. Many years ago, I went to see Alice Cooper in concert, and that was interesting because there were people in their sort of baby boomers who had their teenage kids there, and the baby boomers were loving it. So this is the most amazing thing ever. The teenagers there going, "What the heck is going on with this guy? This is weird." And then I was there as a young adult, and I had one of the youth boys who would come along with me, and so it was music does. But church is another one of those opportunities, and I think what we've noticed is that people come into church and they look around, and whether they can put their finger on it or not, they're noticing actually there are 0 to 80-year-olds all hanging out, all mixing fairly freely. Relationships don't seem to be based on demographics. This is interesting. I'm curious about this. What's going on here? And that's one of the opportunities where, well, let's be ready to give an answer for the hope that we profess. Say that, yeah, because Jesus changes everything and it changes the way that we interact with other generations, that we don't try to huddle in our own peer groups, that we actually try to break out of that. We're not always perfect at it, but that's what we're aspiring to be. And it's also meant that multi-generational families have come. And so we've had young adults who have come to our church and brought their parents with them. We've had parents come who have brought young adult children with them. We've got middle adults who have brought their elderly parents with them and they've joined the church together. So because we are not segregated, we haven't got a strategy that says let's create different gatherings for different life stages. It does speak to the gospel, and it actually does create those missional opportunities for people to come in. And even the ones who are going, this is kind of weird, like, why would I talk to someone who is 10 years, 20 years older or younger than me? Like, it creates that opportunity. Now, so that's the local context. I think that we can do that well locally. How do we do that? I mean, some of our Indigenous friends have taught us a lot of things about how to do community well, how to do intergenerationality well. Intergenerationality in an Indigenous context is something I probably have not thought enough about, but there's aspects there where there are can be strong generational ties which can create healthy intergenerational communities. So that's something to be particularly looking out for. And then when you get to a world stage, realising that, different cultures have different experiences and different expectations in terms of how generations relate to each other. One of the really curious things, and this has become a conversation the last sort of 5 years in the intergenerational world, is this idea that generations would be mutually encouraging to one another a biblical idea or a Western idea? And the distinction comes when you go to particularly Eastern cultures who have very strong hierarchy and respect for eldership. And so, I think the gospel both can affirm and challenge different aspects of every culture. Is mutuality of relationship and discipleship something that is uniquely biblical? And therefore, if it hits up against a culture where there's high deference to authority and the older have nothing to learn from the younger and it's only ever one directional, is it a Christian value to challenge that? Or is it another example of Western egalitarianism coming in and imposing itself on non-egalitarian communities? So this is a fascinating conversation because there are Christians in Eastern contexts, there are Christians in Western contexts and others that are trying to have this out and think it through really seriously and pray through it. And so just to say that when we go, whether it's in our own city, being a very multicultural city, we're going to have a lot of Eastern cultures and a lot of African cultures that have that kind of deference to authority built into their ecosystem. And then when we think about world mission, when we take some of our values with us, being careful to prayerfully go work through what of these values are biblical. Are there ones that we think are biblical but are more Western than biblical? All these kinds of things are great conversations to be having that are very alive right now in the intergenerational space.
But it kind of creates the opportunity to be able to have those conversations.
It does,
And
yeah.
I like that, like we're talking just about the local context. It's an appeal. It can be an appealing juxtaposition to what they're used to in most of their life. Is they come and say, there's all these different people of ages, and like it stirs in them something like, I haven't experienced this before, and there might be something more to this. And we've talked about before about being an intergenerational community harks back to things pre-industrial age. As a village to raise a child and all that kind of thing, and doing that in our own particular context, but there's an appeal to that as well. So, yeah, that was really fascinating. There's so many things in there. Anyway, one more piece that I was going to talk about the strategy, or ask you about the strategy, Jai, was partnering with others. Mm-hmm. So where there's other mission partners, other churches and stuff. What's the world perspective on that, and why do we want to do that? But also then what's the purpose in doing it?
Part of it is, so with groups like CMS, these guys are professionals in in doing mission overseas, and it'd be crazy for us to try and reinvent the wheel and think through all the things that they've already spent years and years working through and organising and setting up. And so, and considering they're also an Anglican mission group, it makes sense for us to partner with them as we see people go overseas. So there's part of it is it's using the resources that we have and the expertise of organisations like CMS, where we're aligned as well. It's a no-brainer, really. I guess it's a thing of mutual interest and mutual benefit, and we're able to support any missionary that goes overseas in both a sending church, being able to pray because of the relationships we have, but also an agency that knows all the ins and outs of things that we will never know about, things that will blow our minds that we wouldn't even think we had to think about. They've thought about, which is really good. When we look at our connections with North West New South Wales, these guys are already there on the ground, doing it, and especially in Indigenous communities, it's particularly difficult for someone like myself. If I relocate out there, it would take ages to kind of have any traction. We've got some of the elders of the actual community doing ministry, sharing the truth and love of Jesus, living it out daily, even standing in the back of trucks and preaching the gospel. Why not support that ministry? I'm sure I'm pretty sure that's been spoken about, the connection we had with Isaac and his family when they were down our way, and that's kind of where that friendship and relationship was built and kind of was forged, and then has continued on still today for a long, long time. And so being able to encourage them as brothers and sisters, as friends in the ministry that they are doing is a way that we can help share the gospel in communities that we wouldn't normally be able to, because we're supporting people who are already there. And what we do is we go up regularly to encourage them. Sometimes we will speak, sometimes we won't. Sometimes just, Stu Braddo and I just went up recently for a funeral up there. We did nothing except for stand at the back. But that had an impact because there was our church represented in the three of us being up there at a very key moment in the community up there. So we're representing our church in that moment, and it spoke volumes of our partnership and our friendship in the gospel. And Isaac's the guy who taught us and encouraged us to think about from Galatians that we're all one in Christ. There's no separation because of what Christ has done for us. He's got the great symbol of the black and white handshake, for example, and show that there is unity. It doesn't matter the colour of our skin because of what Jesus has done. And so these partnerships are living out and in a very practical way those teachings, those things that we've been taught through Scripture, and also to do it in a very real way on the ground, in very deep personal relationships.
I love the concept that Isaac's talked about with the black and white handshake as well. It just reminds me of that episode we did with Michael Duckett years ago on the Shock Resort, which was just as fascinating and enlightening and encouraging at the same time. So it will link that in the show notes to get a vibe on that as well. Tim, we're talking about strategy there, but now let's move on to practice. In terms of the World team, what are your ideas and thoughts around what we're actually doing on the ground? Because one of the questions I think we have, again, and we're kind of trying to work against that idea, just push back gently against this idea of missionaries are just outside. So how do you think the World team, and we might need Jai's input on this too, but how did the World team operate within a gathering aspect? So we always like to have, as much as we can, our service teams filled with people serving in all 10 service teams. Now that's aspirationally what we're going to do. It doesn't always happen all the time. But how do you see that playing out across our gatherings as part of the World team?
Yeah, so part of the point of a gathering coordinator in each of these, so we have a gathering coordinator for a service team in a gathering, if you follow that language. So that means that there are again, aspirationally, ideally, in each gathering there are 10 individuals, sometimes partners, couples sometimes, who are the particular go-to person for that service team in that gathering. Some of these will have teams that they are running in that gathering. So the hospitality team, the kids team, the youth team, the welcoming team. Good examples are the ones that have multiple people in those gatherings that they are running teams live in that gathering. There are others, and the world is probably one of the best examples of it, where there is not a team that they are running to help pull this gathering off. So therefore the role becomes one of advocacy, it becomes one of awareness, and drawing people to that. So at the best, they're bringing the issues of the world service team to bear on that gathering. So they might be helping collaborate with, okay, how are we going to do prayers this week so that we can honour the particular mission partnership, whether it be local, national, or global. How can we raise up more people? So we're going another Brewarrina trip. So it might be the world team that is particularly going around having conversations and saying to people, hey, a couple of months' time, we're going to another Brewarrina trip. I'd love for you to think about coming with us so that you can experience what it's like for our church to be partnering with our friends in northern New South Wales. So they might be running the logistics behind that. They're helping the people that they're gathering connect with the issues of world, and then also the issues of world to come to bear on that gathering, so that everyone in that gathering has the opportunity to be aware of all the things we are doing, our international partnerships, national partnerships, local partnerships. And so it's a mediating role. It will require lots of communication, back and forth, lots of conversations, and also empowering others as well. So the reason that they're a leader is that they've got an opportunity to help influence others and to help share their particular service team with others. And so there'll be, again, we want to work in friendships. We want there to be good friendship between the different gathering coordinators. And there'll be all sorts of synergies that will come out of that. A couple of opportunities we haven't probably thought through fully yet, but how can the world team and the kids team work well together so that even in the kids ministry, the kids are praying regularly, writing to some of our friends in northern New South Wales or overseas? How can the world team and the community groups team partner well together so that maybe community teams have a particular partner that they are intentionally praying for, and you can spread out all of our world partners across all of our community groups, and they've all got someone that they're particularly caring for. What's the connection between world and youth ministry? What does that look like? What does world and world, like all these kind of connections? And so the coordinator hopefully is someone who can take some initiative, communicate well, and think through in friendship with all the other leaders, how do we all help support each other in what we're doing.
And that's that reciprocal element again, isn't it? It's not just someone's out there. It's like, how does it fitting back into the church, and how do we support them? Cyclical, as you've said before, Joy. I think we're running out of time, so we should hurry up to wrap up this episode. The last question I've got is, and how we do this in practice, and perhaps both of you might need to speak on this. I don't know. The supporting actual missionaries and actual mission partners. What do we actually do? Because we said that we don't want that to be the only part of what we're talking about, the world team, but it is an important part of our team. How do we support them? And it's something that we've had to figure out as well, because as we've come closer in our partnership with Miranda Congregational Church, they have a lot of mission partners as well. So it's something that it's a new problem that's a good new problem that's presented us. How are we working through that, and how are we supporting them as we go?
I think it's a work in progress, but I think on a number of levels, there's financial support that we're giving as a church and as individuals, prayer support that we're giving as church and individuals. So that's kind of at one level. And I think I remember like Tim being at SMBC doing the mission subject there, just the thing, like I think we don't quite have the same concept of when people drop in to see us, sometimes it's an inconvenience rather than a delight. if you're at home, someone pops in to see you. I was just in the neighbourhood. I pop in. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it's not nice. You probably need to give a little bit of notice. But I remember Alicia talking about, if you're going on holidays, think about how you might be able to, like if you're going overseas, can you do a stopover on the way for a few days just to encourage the missionary that you've got connections with, or who's on the way to wherever it is you're going, or on the way home, or whatever it might be. Just little things like that, just those moments where you just pop in and say, hi, I've taken a detour to come here to say hi, means a lot, right? I remember this is a story from a long time ago, not my story, but the story our lecturer told us, that someone from a church would send these packages over to a missionary family, and what they would do is they would send over Tim Tams and all that sort of stuff. And when the missionary came back on furlough to speak at the church, they thanked the church for sending over all these wonderful gifts. And the person interviewing said, "Oh, what was your favourite? Was it the Tim Tams? Was it the Vegemite?" And this person, this family said it was actually the newspaper that they wrapped up the gifts in, because we could actually hear what was happening back home through the newspaper.
Fascinating.
So it was great, those things. So just little things like that, just keeping, just thinking of the Eliards in particular, who have been part of our church for a long period of time, keeping them updated on things that are happening in our community is a way of still keeping that connection. And we don't have to wrap up presents in newspaper to send over. We've got emails and text messages and WhatsApp and all those sorts of stuff. So little things like that are really important things that we can do to support and encourage missionaries overseas. I think the wonderful thing, we talk about viral sensations and whatever else, and often we talk about the negatives of the internet and all that sort of stuff. One of the wonderful things is that we're so connected, and we can connect with anyone. Pretty much every country you can, there's some way of connecting. So you can drop an email, you can drop a text, just to let people know that you're praying for them and that you're still thinking of them. All those sorts of things we can do really easily, and actually really don't cost us a great deal.
Can I ask a final point there, Tim, about prayer? I mean, it doesn't cost anything but time. Prayer is an exceptionally great way to support ministry partners. What I'd like you to do maybe is just further encourage me, let alone anyone else who's listening and watching, that why is prayer such a good support? Because we really are, we talk about how we're unified under Christ, isn't it? Like that is our prayer life, or at least our desire to pray and support others in that, is an indication of how much we actually believe that's true. So I would just like you to give some an in-depth look into why should we be praying for people that are around the world and not just here, or not just, we're just even talking about people in Australia, and why prayer is so important.
Yeah. Oh, well, theology of prayer. So
next episode.
Yeah. There's lots going on with theology of prayer. I'll probably miss a whole lot, but one of the key things that comes to my mind is that prayer is a recognition that actually God is doing his work, and that he calls us to partner with him, not because he needs us, because he delights in our sharing. But ultimately he's the one who is growing his kingdom and doing his work. And actually we're incapable of doing anything without his help. And so it's a way of being conversational and relational that talks to Jesus. It's a aspect of our communion with Jesus. And in doing so, we bring our requests to him. And so there's all sorts of things that we can bring to him. And when it comes to the idea of world and to mission, and particularly as we think about those who are not yet in Christ, so we would love to be in Christ, whether that's our local neighbour or friends in New South Wales, or global mission partners, that we know that the Eliards are over doing their work because there's a lot of people who have not heard the gospel, or have not heard the gospel clearly, and therefore are under false understanding of how they can relate to God, or just don't have an understanding of God whatsoever. And so, part of God enacting his plan that he will bring salvation to the ends of the earth is through human agency. And so as we engage in prayer for the Eliards, we're praying that they will continue to grow as disciples of Jesus. We want God's Holy Spirit to be very present to them, and establishing them and encouraging them. And we want the Holy Spirit to be empowering the actions that they are doing over in Ethiopia to actually be able to communicate the gospel. We know that it is God who unblinds the eyes of those who have been blinded. That's the 2 Corinthians 4. So God is the one who calls people to himself. God is ultimately the one who reconciles. And as agents of reconciliation, we're called to bring God into that conversation and not to think that we can do it by ourselves without prayer. So that amounts to part of the answer. It's probably insufficient, but it's part of the picture. And I think the other thing that comes to mind, obviously, when we think about these issues and prayer, is that Jesus himself encourages his disciples to pray that the Lord of the harvest will bring more harvesters. And so part of the recognition is that there are still people groups in the world who have never heard Jesus, the name Jesus. There are places in the world that have heard the name Jesus but have not understood Jesus. There are places, particularly around Europe and parts of Australia and America and the Western world, that have been part of the West and Christendom but have largely rejected Jesus. And so let's pray for more missionaries to places in Germany and in France and in Italy where the gospel has been resoundingly rejected because of all sorts of cultural forces and whatnot. But they call them back to the culture. The what I'm trying to say, the gospel, like to come back to God. But again, it's going to be God's work through human agencies. And I think that one verse I keep coming back to, and I think about this for scripture teachers, I think about this for local partnerships, all the way through to global partners, is when Paul is talking in 1 Corinthians and he says, someone planted, Paul planted, Peter watered, someone else, Apollos did this, but it's God who makes things grow. And just this recognition that we all have a part to play. We will all do something of living out the gospel in our communities and into the world. We have people who have particularly gone and mission and evangelize in particular areas. But ultimately it's God that makes things grow. And so the importance of prayer is it shapes our hearts to help us remember that God is doing his work. And it's also drawing on the source that is actually transforming the world. So there's a bit of a scattered answer.
No, and off that, like in terms of our mission partnerships, it unifies us as well. As Paul talks about, even though he's separated physically, he's there spiritually. And so how do you be there spiritually? Because he tells us that he's constantly in prayer for those churches that he's planted. So when we're constantly in prayer for our mission partners, we might not be there physically, but we're united with them spiritually. And so there's a way of being united, not just in Christ, but in prayer as well.
That's something I've really got from today's podcast is because of the unity we have in Christ. That's why we can do that thing of what we're trying to do in the world team, is be interacting between those different elements of our mission, whether it's local, regional, world, but also that it can encourage us within the local context to be able to be thinking about the wider context, but then the same way coming back. And it's that cyclical thing that you spoke about before, John. So that's something that's really impacted me and I think has educated me also. And the reason I asked you to think through prayer a little bit more, deeply, is because maybe I don't think I do. So that's an encouragement for me today from this podcast. But I'm sure many things you've said today, guys, have been very encouraging to people who are thinking through mission and how it works on a church level, and how we can encourage people within church to be able to do that. So thank you very much, guys.
Very welcome.
It's been an excellent podcast again, as usual. We're going to have a break for a couple of weeks, I believe, because I'm away for 1 week, and then we're going to, I think we're planning our planning day as well. So we might have a break from recording just for a very small amount of time, but we might come back and we've got one more service team to discuss.
Not the Vegemite. service team.
You've changed it.
Tim's
The
new
other
book.
one, or is it a
Milk
joint?
Arrow, I don't know.
It's a pair.
It's a pair.
Well, it could be Tim's new
mission.
book on.
Yeah, Tasmanian Devil Care.
Yeah.
Yep.
That could be one.
Where does that fit in with the Soul Revolve strategy?
I'm sure Tim is.
They're
He's thought about it.
they're low, so low key. They're very relational, and I.
Well, you long term, you want to
Long term. We actually
we want more of them.
Yeah, we need more of them because they're killing each other in Tasmania. So we need to keep raising the unaffected populations so that when they go extinct in Tasmania, we can repopulate the state and maybe even the nation.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
One state at a time.
One state at a time.
One state at a time. Appreciate your Tasmanian Devil evangelism there. Thank you very much. Well, thank you guys, and thank you to everyone listening and watching. Email me, joel@shockresolver.com.au, if you would like to send in any thoughts or queries or ideas, and we can talk about them on the podcast. Other ways you can do that is by dropping us a comment on our YouTube channel, or just frankly by listening and watching. Let us know if you are, because we really appreciate it. Final question is, I suppose, how do you like to think about your church doing mission differently from what they're currently doing? I'm sure they're doing great things if you're in a church doing that, but what else would you like to see happen? And give us that answer as well, whether it's via email or on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for listening and watching. And as usual, we finish with a one way.
One way.
One way.